Hey guys, Telegram Sam here. If you don't already know, I have an Instagram. It's telegram_Sam_vinyl. So if you want to see more things about my vinyl records, music, all of the stuff I usually talk about here on there, go check that out. But anyways, today's video is going to be records that the VC has introduced me to. This can be artists, bands, entire genres of music that I didn't really know about until I started watching vinyl community videos. I probably started watching them about 3 years ago, where I probably had only like a quarter of the records that I currently have. Ever since then, I've just delved so deep into all the bands and artists that I see so many other members mentioned that I've just never either heard about or just never really taken seriously. So let's get into it. First off, we got Neil Young. Of course, I knew who Neil Young was. I only really knew him from like the stuff on the Harvest album, like Heart of Gold, Old Man. That was all I really knew from him. And my mom hates Neil Young, so anytime I really tried to delve into it, when I was like a teenager, she was like, "What the hell are you listening to? Why are you listening to Neil Young?" But recently, I have just really have grown to love him. I especially love his live albums. I have 5 of them so far, and this by far is my favorite. This is Young Shakespeare. This is a concert he did in 1974 in Connecticut, and it's just the most beautiful sounding live record, probably the best live record he has ever done. It's literally just him singing and playing the acoustic guitar and harmonica, I think. I mean, he does all of his great songs, including the ones on Harvest and a few other ones like Tell Me Why, Don't Let It Bring You Down, Helpless, Down by the River, Sugar Mountain. I mean, love him, and I plan having most of his discography. I think he's released like 80 something albums or something in his career. I want to try and get as many as I can. And the next one is going to have to be like an entire genre of music. That would be jazz. Jazz is something I didn't grow up around it. It was just something that wasn't really around me to get into. So it wasn't until I started watching vinyl community videos like Mike from Hub Tunes, Mazzy's Jazz Collection, Lavelle Andrews, that I really started to understand how important jazz is to music and just how technical and intellectual of a genre of music it is. Obviously, Miles Davis and John Coltrane are just some of the big figureheads of jazz. I unfortunately don't have a lot of jazz on vinyl. I do have most of my jazz on CD just because they're super easy to find at thrift stores. But yeah, I really hope to pick up more jazz on vinyl. I probably only have like 5 or 10 jazz records, but I really want to start picking up more. And I do love this album with Miles Davis and John Coltrane playing Richard Rodgers. So yeah. And next, we have Townes Van Zandt. Oh my god, I feel like once I heard Townes Van Zandt for the first time, I felt like I sort of put a piece in a puzzle that I didn't even know the puzzle was missing. I mean, I love country music. I love Johnny Cash, and I just don't know why I was never really introduced to him. Probably because he's not really part of the mainstream country. He's not, Johnny Cash, Conway Twitty, or the outlaw country like Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings. He's kind of more sort of woodsy, like folk, blues driven country music. I mean, this album alone is just nothing but greatest hits. You have Columbine, Waiting Around to Die, which is just such a beautiful song. Colorado Girl, Lungs. I know this is one of Dylan from Noble Records' favorite records, and that's probably where I first heard of Townes Van Zandt. But yeah, just everything by him is just so beautiful. I have the Big Lebowski Mondo soundtrack, and the last song on the soundtrack is his cover of Dead Flowers by the Rolling Stones, and man, his version is so much better than the Rolling Stones version. And then next I got Funkadelic by Maggot Brain. I did listen to a little bit of funk before I watching VC videos, but nothing like this. This is just its own thing. I never saw this album before. I never heard of this album before. Again, I think this was something I saw Dylan from Noble Record show, maybe Bob Bradley, before I really delved into it. But man, this is just the best funk record out there. It's funk, it's soul, it's psych rock, all mixed into one. I mean, it just takes you on a trip. I mean, obviously you have Eddie Hazel's just killer guitar solo on the opening track, Maggot Brain. I mean, the fact that Eddie Hazel isn't thrown into the conversation as one of the greatest guitar players ever is a disservice. But, I mean, yeah, if you don't know this album, just listen to it. It's killer. This is definitely up there as one of my top 20 greatest albums ever. Yeah, nothing really more to say on that. And next is not really only this album, but sort of before they were famous albums. This is the Moving Sidewalks Flash. This was the band Billy Gibbons was in before he formed ZZ Top. R.I.P. to Dusty Hill. He recently just died a couple of days ago. Really, really sad. But this was the band Billy Gibbons was in. You can definitely hear, what he would end up taking to ZZ Top, as in like his blues sort of hard rock sound. That's him right there without the long beard. But then you also have, the Stevie Nicks, Lindsey Buckingham album, the album that Billy Joel did with like his heavy metal rock group before he did his solo sort of piano player thing, and then like the album with Debbie Harry, the psych band she was in before she moved to New York and formed Blondie. So it's just kind of like cool, like interesting history things, and plus this album is really killer too. So. And then next we got another genre of music I really wasn't into before watching VC videos. Rap music. Rap, hip-hop, especially like East Coast rap, hip-hop I wasn't really familiar with. My brother did have like Eminem and I think maybe one of Snoop Dogg's CDs when I was growing up. It just wasn't really a part of my life or my growing up. And I wouldn't say it was necessarily VC because it wasn't really a vinyl community thing, but the Fuse Crate Digger series, which was probably one of the first videos I watched that had to do with records on YouTube, it just really got me interested in this entire world of hip-hop that I just never knew about, especially the New York early 80s to early 90s hip-hop scene, just how influential that entire scene was on hip-hop, R&B, and rap that came later in the 2000s and now. I mean, this is probably one of my favorites. This is Old Dirty Bastard's 36 Chambers, the Dirty version. This is the solo album he did after he left Wu-Tang Clan. I mean, I just love Old Dirty Bastard. He's probably one of my favorite rappers. Just like his unique style of rapping, and man, this just rocks. So. And then next we got Tom Waits. Tom Waits is someone I just never heard his music. I always heard people sort of make fun of him and like do impressions of him. But I never really took him seriously as a singer and as like a writer. But yeah, the VC definitely introduced me to his music. This is the only album I have of his. This is the Early Years Volume 1. This is kind of more when he was doing sort of like folk stuff in like the early 70s. It's definitely interesting to hear how his music has evolved. But I mean, I love the album Heart Attack and Vine. I can't remember if that's what the album's called or if that's just the song that's on there. But I love whatever album that is. It's so killer. His sort of vaudeville, rock, jazz, like sort of thing. I feel like every album for him is so different. And yeah, I definitely love him. And plus, he's like so hot. He's definitely like my dream guy. And then next we got Betty Davis. Man, I love this album. Again, I think this was something that was introduced to me through Dylan from Noble Records. Yeah, this is definitely one of my top 10 favorite albums now. This is just a mix of like hard rock, funk, soul, experimental. I mean, she's just so fucking cool and killer. I mean, this album alone is just amazing. And plus, you have her other album, They Say I'm Different. That's also great. I just personally prefer this one over that one. I haven't heard her other album. I think it's called Nasty Girl or Nasty Gal. But I think those were the only 3 albums she ever did. But I mean, anything she does is amazing. And I'm so glad I have her in my life. She's just so cool. Yeah. And then next we got Harry Nilsson. I think it was either Mazzy or I'm forgetting the German guy. I forget what his name is, but you know who he is. He has the big glasses, and he has just one of the most impressive audiophile collections I've ever seen. We're talking about this album a couple years ago, and I just never knew who Harry Nilsson was, or this album, how important and amazing it is. I obviously heard Coconut, that's in the Reservoir Dogs movie, but I never realized it was him or that was on this album. But you have Jump Into the Fire, Without You, which is like one of the most beautiful songs ever written. Let the Good Times Roll Down, Early in the Morning. I mean, if you look up the history of Harry Nilsson, especially like his early years of writing music, he pretty much wrote every great song from the 60s. He wrote a lot of great songs for the Monkees. I think he wrote One Is the Loneliest Number that Three Dog Night did. But yeah, super influential, super important artist, and he's such a great singer and piano player. So, and then next, it's kind of like a whole sort of group of records, but sort of like these weird, sort of abstract private press records. This is kind of like one of my favorites. This is the You Know Who group. This was like a garage psych band that were kind of like this mysterious, like caped crusaders. This was the only album they released, and it has like a whole write-up of like the whole spiel of how their accountants, I think one was like a soldier or something like that, sort of the mystique behind it. But it's just so cool. They have a lot of other records like this where they're just like these one-off sort of private press records that aren't really great, but they're just kind of like these weird sort of funky things to have in your record collection. Yeah, I just love weird stuff like this. So, but yeah, that was it. Thank you to the vinyl community for continuously introducing so many cool genres, bands, artists to me that I just never knew of before. So thank you to everyone. And thank you for watching this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.